Walt Disney's story begins in 1901 when he was born in Chicago. Back then, he was simply Walter Elias Disney, just another kid in a growing family. But his childhood wanderings would set the stage for the imaginative world he would eventually create. Walt's parents, Elias and Flora Disney, moved the family from Chicago to a small farm in Marceline, Missouri when Walt was only 4 years old. This farm setting sparked his first true love of drawing, partly because he was surrounded by nature and a laid-back country life. Walt was fascinated by animals, and one local doctor even paid him to sketch his horse. It was in these quiet Missouri fields that Walt's imagination began to blossom. When he was around 10, the family moved again, this time to Kansas City, Missouri. Walt and his older brother Roy helped their dad deliver newspapers, getting up before dawn and trudging through the Casey streets in all kinds of weather. Walt often nodded off in class from exhaustion, yet he still managed to enroll in art courses, determined to keep his dream of drawing alive. This workload was tough, but it taught him grit and gave him an early sense of discipline. As a teenager, Walt returned with his family to Chicago. He enrolled at McKinley High School, drawing patriotic cartoons for his school newspaper at the height of World War I. Determined to join the war effort, he tried to enlist in the army at just 16. Turned away for being too young, he fibbed about his birth date and joined the Red Cross as an ambulance driver. Though he arrived in France just after the armistice, Walt still found ways to doodle and create cartoons, sometimes painting them right on his ambulance. Back from France, Walt took a job at a commercial art studio in Kansas City where he befriended another artist, Works. Together they discovered a passion for animation. Walt couldn't resist dabbling in every technique he could find: cutout animation, cell animation, and more. Eventually he set up a small animation business called Laugh-O-Gram Studio. Though it went bankrupt, it gave him enough experience and confidence to dream bigger. In 1923, Walt moved to California, partly because his brother Roy was recovering from tuberculosis there, and partly because Walt dreamed of working on live-action films. In a twist of fate, his old Alice's Wonderland short, a mix of live-action and animation, interested a New York distributor. This prompted Walt and Roy to form the Disney Brothers Studio, which was soon renamed Walt Disney Studio, and to bring out the young actress Virginia Davis from Kansas City to California to keep making the Alice comedies. With this, Walt was officially in business. Early on, Walt created and lost the rights to a character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. This was a tough blow, but turned out to be an enormous lesson in intellectual property. Determined not to lose his next creation, Walt teamed up with Works to design a new character. Legend has it that Walt first called this cheerful, mischievous little rodent Mortimer Mouse, but his wife Lillian disliked the name, so Mickey Mouse was born. Walt's early Mickey Mouse cartoons, including Plain Crazy, didn't initially get distribution, but in 1928, with new technology and the buzz surrounding talking movies, Walt introduced Steamboat Willie, the first Mickey short to use synchronized sound. It was a smash hit. Mickey Mouse became a national star, and fans adored the bright, upbeat character, and Walt quite literally gave Mickey his own voice for many years. The success of Mickey Mouse short films enabled Walt Disney Studio to experiment with more ambitious animation. Walt introduced the Silly Symphony series, which used music as the driving force for storytelling. One short, Flowers and Trees, featured the first use of full-color 3-strip Technicolor in animated cartoons and won an Academy Award. Disney shorts like The Three Little Pigs also struck a chord with audiences during the Great Depression. The catchy tune, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, brightened spirits and showed Walt's knack for tapping into what people needed in the moment. Yet Walt was itching to go bigger. By the mid-1930s, he set out to create a full-length animated movie, a wild idea at the time, so risky that Hollywood folks called it Disney's folly. That project was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Walt poured time, care, and a lot of money into it, insisting on detailed character animation and emotional storytelling. Snow White became the highest-grossing sound film up to that date and cemented Disney's name in movie history. Around this time, Walt's personal life was growing too. He had married an inker named Lillian Bounds in 1925, and by the early 1930s, they wanted a proper family home. In 1932, Walt built a Tudor French Normandy-style house on Woking Way in the Los Feliz area of Los Angeles. The rush to finish the home was partly because Walt and Lillian were expecting their first child. Sadly, that pregnancy failed. However, their daughter Diane was born not too long afterward, and they later adopted another daughter, Sharon. Walt's Los Feliz home was a lively place with some whimsical features, like a children's playhouse for the girls, classic examples of Walt's playful spirit. That playhouse still exists today, though it now opens up to an in-ground swimming pool. When he first called the property home, the location was somewhat secluded, with views of the natural hills extending as far as the eye can see. Today, that same view is dotted by skyscrapers and LA's urban sprawl. As we make our way back around front, we'll find the main entrance tucked away below an ivy-covered tower. Stepping inside, we pass under the grand staircase and make our way across parquet wood floors. If we were to have looked up nearly a century ago, we might have seen Walt leaning over the handrail to greet us. Not much has changed over time, with the dome still appearing as it did back when the house was first built. As we begin exploring the house, we'll take a quick look at the floor plan, noting that we'll be heading straight from the hall to the living room. From the threshold near the base of the grand staircase, we see the living room. This is where we can imagine Walt and his wife playing with their young daughters, toys strewn about everywhere. Had we made a right when we first entered, we would have found the library, which was used as a private screening room. And had we made a left, we would have found the dining room with French doors opening out to a patio. Up on the ceiling, between the coffers, we find hand stenciling done very much in the style of Walt's early animations. Let's turn around now and begin making our way up to the second floor. As we pass by the landing above the front door, we get a better look at the fantastical stained glass, just one of the many charming features of the house. We can take another look at the floor plan to get our bearings for the second story. Up here we'll find the couple's bedroom with a large window overlooking Los Angeles. The bathroom is where we can once again easily imagine life playing out for the Disneys, with it appearing almost exactly as it did back when they called Los Feliz home. The family enjoyed the property while Walt remained hard at work. The studio kept rolling, releasing Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, and Bambi in the early 1940s. Each film pushed the boundaries of animation artistry in different ways, though some struggled at the box office, particularly during World War II. Throughout the war, Disney even produced training and propaganda films for the US military. Despite financial ups and downs, Walt's high standards were unwavering. Animators sometimes found him tough to please, but most admired his drive for perfection. Along with animation, Walt dove into live-action films such as Treasure Island. Around the same time, he looked at a brand new medium, television. Shows like the Mickey Mouse Club and Disneyland drew massive audiences. These TV successes helped finance Walt's next big dream, an amusement park unlike any other. Walt wanted a place where families could have fun together in a clean, story-driven environment far removed from the typical carnivals of the day. So Walt built Disneyland in Anaheim, California, opening it in 1955 at a cost of $17 million, the equivalent of over $200 million today. While opening day was notoriously chaotic, plumbing glitches, rides that broke down, and even boats that nearly sank, visitors still adored it. Disneyland quickly became a huge success, eventually hosting millions of guests every year. Not content with just California, Walt explored other cities for possible parks. At one point, he developed ideas for a theme park project in St. Louis, Missouri. However, the deal never took shape, with various accounts citing funding disputes and creative disagreements. Ultimately, the Missouri project was shelved, and Walt focused on fresh opportunities elsewhere. By the early 1960s, he had a grand vision for another park. This one would be built on a vast tract of land in Florida and include not only a Magic Kingdom theme park, but also a forward-thinking community he called Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. Walt pictured a futuristic mini-city that would showcase new technology and innovative ways of living. Sadly, he would never see the finished product. A heavy smoker, Walt Disney developed lung cancer and passed away in 1966 at the age of 65. Walt's brother Roy postponed his retirement to oversee the ongoing construction of the theme park, which opened as Walt Disney World in 1971, with a park initially called the Magic Kingdom. Epcot eventually followed in 1982, though in a form different from Walt's original city blueprint. From sketching a doctor's horse as a boy on a Missouri farm to designing a family home in Los Angeles, from making silent cartoons on shoestring budgets to revolutionizing entertainment with Disneyland, Walt Disney never stopped chasing new ideas. He believed in blending art, technology, and heartfelt storytelling to bring joy to millions. His project changed animation forever, opened the door for modern theme parks, and inspired countless dreamers and innovators. Ultimately, Walt Disney's life shows how imagination, perseverance, and a dash of daring can transform small drawings into an empire of enchantment. Whether he was chugging along on his backyard Carrollwood Railroad or unveiling the latest big-screen masterpiece, Walt always looked forward. Decades later, his name remains synonymous with creativity, wonder, and of course, Mickey Mouse. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. Which of his two houses was your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.